Amidst the increasingly dense fog of war in Eastern Europe, news has once again broken the silence. International media and social media are filled with headlines. The United States is sending dozens of armored combat vehicles to Ukraine. The names that appear are no joke. M2 Bradleys, M1A2 Abrams main battle tanks, M109A6 Paladin self-propelled howitzers, Stryker armored vehicles, and even HEMT of 4 heavy logistics trucks. But did this really just happen? Or once again, are we being served up bits of information that have been taken out of context? First, let's dissect each one. The M2 Bradley Infantry Fighting Vehicle, an armored vehicle that has long been the backbone of the U.S. mechanized infantry. Armed with a 25mm M242 Bushmaster cannon, a TOW missile launcher, and a coaxial 7.62mm machine gun, the Bradley is the complete package: protection, firepower, and mobility. The U.S. began delivering these units to Ukraine in early 2023 as part of a multi-billion-dollar aid package. But recent reports have suggested the figure of dozens of new units. Does this mean additional deliveries? Facts on the ground indicate that several batches are still in transit, in accordance with previously announced military aid contracts. Next up is the M1A2 Abrams main battle tank. This is the icon of American ground power. Weighing 62 tons, it's covered in the latest generation of Chobham composite armor and is equipped with a 120mm M256 smoothbore gun. Ukraine received official confirmation from the Pentagon in late 2023 that 31 Abrams tanks had been ready. However, physical deliveries are being made in stages. Recent viral photos in Poland and Germany showed several Abrams tanks being transported on military flatbeds. This fueled speculation that a new wave of these tanks had been delivered. In fact, most of these tanks were already on the rotation and delivery schedule. The M109A6 Paladin, a self-propelled howitzer that is a battlefield artillery monster. It has a range of up to 30 kilometers with standard ammunition, and even longer with specialized ammunition. Ukraine already uses the previous M109, but the A6 variant brings significantly improved digital fire control systems. Eastern European sources confirm that additional batches of Paladins have indeed passed through logistics channels in Poland to Ukraine, but the exact number has not been officially announced. The Stryker armored vehicle, a flexible 8-wheeled armored vehicle, capable of troop transport, commando transport, medical transport, and even an anti-tank weapon carrier. The U.S. aid package in early 2024 calls for the gradual delivery of hundreds of Strykers. Recent sightings at the NATO logistics depot in Rzeszów, Poland, show dozens of new units ready to enter Ukraine. And finally, the HEMTTA-4 Heavy Expanded Mobility Tactical Truck. This massive logistics vehicle is the backbone of troop mobility. It may not be as popular as the Abrams or Bradley, but without the HEMTT, the movement of ammunition, fuel, and other vital supplies would be crippled. Satellite photos and convoy footage show significant numbers of HEMTTA-4s heading toward the Ukrainian border. So, is it true that the United States just sent dozens of these armored combat vehicles? The answer is partly true, partly requires clarification. Many of these deliveries are a continuation of aid packages announced months, even years ago. Production, modification, crew training, and delivery take a long time, so the arrival of these units is often spread out over several waves. The media and public opinion often highlight the moment of the large convoy, which may seem dramatic, but is actually part of a long logistical chain. However, from a geopolitical perspective, the timing of the arrival of this new wave of combat vehicles is no coincidence. Tensions on Ukraine's eastern front continue to rise, and there are indications that Kyiv is preparing for a large-scale offensive operation before winter. Sending heavy armored vehicles at a time like this is a signal to Russia that NATO, through the US, remains committed to providing full support. Whatever your point of view, this delivery is a fact with profound consequences. For Ukraine, it's a breath of fresh air to defend the front lines and potentially push back Russian forces. For Russia, it's a provocation that could trigger further escalation. And for the world, it's a reminder that behind the headlines and dramatic images, there's always a complex strategic chain of events that is rarely black and white. One thing is certain. Every armored vehicle that crosses the border is part of a larger narrative that will determine the future of this conflict. And we are all watching it unfold, second by second. The United States did send dozens of armored fighting vehicles such as M2 Bradleys, M1A2 Abrams, M109A6 Paladin howitzers, Strykers, and HEMTT-A4s to Ukraine recently. But it's worth noting, this wasn't a surprise delivery, but rather part of a previously announced aid package. Some of the vehicles were upgraded or refurbished from existing U.S. stockpiles before being sent. The deliveries are being phased, so this latest wave is just one phase of a long-term support plan.